Good evening, everyone. Welcome to I Care and You webinar 13. Today we are talking about the CVI and learning how it can support you. I would like to invite our speaker, Molly Randall.
Hi, hi everyone. So my name's Molly. I'm now clinically as an officer for Moorfields Eye Hospital. I've been asked to come today to give you guys a bit of an insight into what a CVI is and sort of just answer any of your questions that you've got. So what I'm going to do, I did have a beautiful presentation planned, but unfortunately life happens and that is not working. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through what I have, all the details that I think are quite relevant and quite useful for you guys to know, and then at the end, if you've got any questions, please do let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I will try to speak slowly. I am told that my accent is quite strong, so if there's anything you don't understand, let me know as well, and I'll try and say it slower at the end as well. I do understand that. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to just open this up so I can see what I'm doing. All right. So firstly, the CVI, what is it? So the CVI stands for Certificate of Visual Impairment. It's an official document, it's a medical document rather, which provides proves your sight loss and obviously also your eye condition. There are two categories within the certificate. There's SI, which is sight impaired, previously known as partially sighted, and SSI, which is severely sight impaired, previously known as blind. I suppose also the CVI is a very significant step along your sight loss journey. So it's something, you know, it's like one of these big moments through as you go. What is the difference between SI and SSI categories? Well, there's no real difference in terms of the support you get. So when you get a certificate, the support that you'll get is always needs-based. It's not category-based. But sight impaired, or SI, which is previously known as partially sighted, is when you have slightly more vision, whereas SSI is when you have slightly less vision. So to give you an example, and there are many, many examples because everyone has different vision, a full visual field rather, with the visual acuity of 6/60, you'll be registered as sight impaired. However, if you had that same visual field but you had 3/60 vision, you'll be registered as severely sight impaired. So it's got to be a very, very low level of vision to be registered SSI. Your consultant will consider this, but also lots of other factors, your usable vision, to determine what category you are placed in, and only your consultant can decide that. So all we are able to do is give you an indication as to what you're likely to be registered as. Now, the CVI offers support. So when we complete a CVI, with your permission, we would send it out to your sensory services team at the council, and they would always look at you as a person rather than just as a category. So they're going to come and assess what your needs are and make sure that they give you the care that you need, whether or not you're registered sight impaired or severely sight impaired. It's definitely needs-based. The only other difference between sight impaired and severely sight impaired is the benefit side of things. So there are three distinct benefits that you get if you're registered severely sight impaired. These are blue badge, although you might qualify through other means, but if you have a blue badge, you automatically can get a, what did I say? If you're registered severely sight impaired, you can automatically get a blue badge. You will also be entitled to 50% off your TV licence, and you would also be entitled to have the blind person's tax allowance, which means you get an extra, I think it's 280,000 a year tax-free. Okay, how will a CVI help you? It acts as a referral to your local sensory team at the council, who can offer practical support to enable you to continue living an independent life, including lighting, mobility training, and potentially a personal assistant. but just so you're aware as well, it's not required that you register with the sensory team. You can still get a CVI and we don't need to send it to them. Equally, if we didn't send it to them and you changed your mind in the future, you can give your CVI to them yourself and go on their register. The CVI also helps you by protecting you under the Equalities Act, which is a really important thing when you're working, and also just helping you to not be discriminated against because of your sight loss. And it entitles you to some other benefits and concessions. So these are things like free postage under the Articles for the Blind. So I don't know if you've ordered anything from the RNIB, but often you can click a button and it means they'll send it to you for free if you are blind or partially sighted. You also get free yearly NHS eye exams. You'd be entitled to get the disabled person's rail card, which gives you a third off rail fares, which is quite useful if you're travelling around lots. You can also get the free or discounted travel. So if you're in London, you'd get the Freedom Pass, which gives you free travel on trains, tubes and buses. Some of them are like within certain time frames, but it's quite useful to get about. You can also get the CEA card, which is a card which entitles you to a free carer's ticket when you go to the cinema. And I think the word carer can often trip people up because although it's a carer's ticket, they don't have to be registered as your carer. It can be any friend, any family member, anyone you'd like to bring with you who can help you at the cinema, because obviously it's quite a dark, disorientating place to find your seat. There's also lots of discounts at other attractions. So most places you go to will give you some sort of discount or free ticket to come along with you. And of course, as we spoke about before, the assessment from social services, which is just a really important step to support you. There's also possible other benefits like getting personal independence payments and attendance allowance, but these are not guaranteed with a CVI. These are just things that often people do get when they have a CVI purely because of their needs that they have. And it can be a useful tool to kind of prove that need, if that makes sense. All right, how do you get a CVI? So you must be under the care of a consultant at an eye clinic. So that doesn't have to be Moorfields, it can be any eye clinic, as long as you're under the care of a consultant, because the consultant has to sign the CVI. So if you're not under the care of a consultant and you feel that your eyesight has reduced enough that you might qualify for a CVI, it'd be a really good idea to get your GP to refer you in to see somebody. And obviously just to get your eyes checked as well, not even to do with the CVI. If you are under the care of a consultant, you can contact your local ECLO. We are all over the place, so that's normally quite a good way to get in touch to sort of see if you would qualify and get that process started. If you don't, you can also contact your consultant secretary. They're normally quite useful in getting the ball rolling as well. Just to let you know though, generally, and this is again not a hard and fast rule, but generally the consultants will want to have seen you in the past year in order to qualify you. They like to sort of just know what your site is doing currently in order to move forward with that process. If you've been seen recently, you may still need to be seen again to get a CVI. You may qualify for it, but they may just not have checked the things that they need to check in order to qualify you. So there's certain things that they'll need to check with your vision, and sometimes when they're treating a condition, they don't always do those checks. So just to warn you as well, you might have to come back. And sadly, consultants don't always automatically offer a CVI if it's necessary. So it's always best to ask as well. And also just to let you know that if you have no vision in just one eye and the other eye is very good vision, you would not qualify. It's measured both eyes combined. That's a question we get a lot, so I thought I'd let you guys know. Okay. Oh, my screen is frozen. There we are. So how can I provide evidence of my CVI? Well, if you have a CVI, you can provide a paper copy. which you're given when you are certified, and you can give that to anyone you wish. You never have to share your CVI though, because it's personal medical information, so it's your choice who you share it with. When we register people, when we certify people rather, we will normally send a copy to the sensory team at the council, and they'll then send out a laminated card. It's usually the size of a bank card, that you can take around with you, which is a little bit more portable, to show as proof of things if you're going to attractions or things, just to show your sight loss. There's also some hospitals have the capability of emailing digital copies of your CVI. So again, if you have that, on your phone, then that's quite a useful way of showing it to people as well. If that's something you would like, you can always see if they have that capability. Okay. Sorry, my computer keeps freezing. It's not a good IT day for me. Okay, what is the difference between a CVI and a BD8? So many of you may already know, but a BD8 is the older non-digital version of a CVI. So it was done on carbon copy paper. It was like slightly longer than an A4 sheet, so it sort of needed to be folded up to fit in a normal booklet or anything, and it's carbon copy. So whereas the new CVI mostly now is done on the computer, some are done fully digitally, some are doing sort of a mixture of both, and it's a little bit more legible generally. The BD8 was produced until I think about 2005, and unfortunately, because of them being produced on carbon copy paper, they often fade. So although you never have to update your BD8 to a CVI if you already have a BD8, if it's faded and it's not legible anymore, then it's perfectly reasonable to request for that to happen. If you have a BD8 that's still really legible and in good condition, then there's absolutely no reason to change to a CVI. It's perfectly valid. It's CVIs are produced and BD8s were produced sort of in the same way that a birth certificate is created. So it's one of these things that doesn't need to be updated constantly. It's just obviously if your vision has changed, to be registered SSI from SI, then you would need to do that. Okay. So who holds a copy of my CVI? So I've already gone through this. So the CVI is issued and sent out normally to your GP, your local sensory team at the council, and obviously a copy to you as well. The hospital that register you also keep a copy. Moorfields do not hold copies of all CVIs, contrary to popular belief. We only hold copies of CVIs that we produce, as with all other hospitals. I think where the confusion comes is epidemiology, who are the researchers at Moorfields. They are sent a copy of all CVIs that are produced, with patients' permission, of course, and they are anonymised, so then they can be used as research. So they don't have people's CVIs, they just take the information off and they're destroyed. So there's no database, unfortunately, for all CVIs. Am I required to disclose my CVI to anyone? So it's not a legal requirement to disclose your CVI, and provided you're not endangering anyone by your non-disclosure. So for example, if you were driving a truck and then you got registered with a CVI, you would need to disclose that. However, whether or not you had a CVI, you would still need to disclose that because it wouldn't be safe. So the CVI is not the thing that needs disclosing, if that makes sense. If you wish to apply for benefits, often the CVI is needed as proof, but generally they're happy to just take Part 1, which has all your clerical details, so you don't necessarily need to disclose all your medical details as well. But some do require it, some don't, so it's just worth bearing that in mind when you're applying for things. But it is your choice, obviously, at the end of the day, who you give that to. Okay. Do I need to report a change of circumstances? So this is sort of what I was talking about a little bit earlier. So once a CVI is issued, it cannot be edited. So we cannot change any details once we've issued it and sent it out. So things like your name, your date of birth, if you got married, if you move house, all these sorts of things. Of course, the date of birth would stay the same. Sorry, I must be very tired. But these things can't be edited. We would generally not update a CVI for things like that unless there was some very specific reason that it was needed to be done. But if any details have changed, you can just update the hospital or the sensory team yourself, and they'll have those new records on the system. Okay. So in the unlikely event that your vision improved, which we all, that's not a bad thing to happen, then you would probably need to disclose that because you might not qualify for a CVI anymore. However, generally a CVI isn't issued if your vision is likely to improve. They sort of wait until things are stable. So, but yeah, just so you know that is the case. And in that event, you would need to inform your consultant, of course, but I'm sure you would be doing that anyway. And if you have a CVI or a BD8 and you notice a drop in vision, it's probably a good idea to get reassessed just in case you are qualified to be registered as severely sight impaired as opposed to sight impaired, just because of the extra benefits that you can get from that. It's not a requirement, but it's advisable. So if you want to do that, obviously get back in touch with your ECLO or the secretary at your hospital, and they would be able to help you with that process. If you were registered SSI already and you noticed a drop in vision, I mean, obviously it's a good idea to get in touch with your hospital, but in terms of the CVI, there's no further registration, so there'd be no need to update that. Okay, so now I think the last thing I wanted to do was just to go through how the CVI is laid out. And unfortunately that slide is missing from my presentation, so I have to go from memory. But basically how it is it's about a 10-page document that would be sent out to you. So when people say, it's a certificate, that can sometimes be a bit confusing because it doesn't look like a certificate, it looks like a giant document, which is what it is. So the first page is your personal details. It'll have your name, your address, all these sorts of things, and that can sort of bleed through to page 2. Then you'll have all the details of your condition, and it will have consents, who we can send it to, who we can't. It'll have your preferred method of contact, what your breath, if you were British Sign Language, all that would be on there. And it would also have your ethnicity on there. So it's quite a big comprehensive document. And one of the sections is purely just for the council. So it's talking about like what, if you have any learning disabilities, if you have physical mobility issues, anything like that as well is on there so that they know what to expect so that they can then start a plan to support you. So I think that's about it. I hope that made sense. I hope that wasn't too, I'm sure that was like a lot of information dumped all at once. But I'm very happy to take any questions, and I'll give my email address to Bhavini, she's already got it. So then if you have any other questions or if you don't want to ask them here, you're more than welcome to pop me an email as well, and I'm happy to answer your questions that way too. Okay.
Thank you, Molly. That was a great presentation. So thank you everyone for coming today for this presentation as well. We hope to see you next month for webinar 14, which will be about sharing tips for building self-confidence whilst living with visual impairment. Thank you for watching.